be it medicine, be it food, be it any other product. There is a label starting mentioning expiry date. But we are tempted now. Medicines are life saving. Hi, Raghu. How are you?
I'm good, Raj. How are you? Thank you for inviting me here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Your previous video of influenza vaccine was very informative, and we got a lot of positive comments about it. And
Thank you.
we have the pleasure of inviting you once again. Now, let's go straight into the topic, Raghu. Coming to this one, what does the expiration date on medication signify, and what does it indicate actually?
So, in simple terms, if I was to actually say what is an expiry date of a medication,
Mm,
so every product has, every manufacturer, when they manufacture a particular medicine, they have to give an indication to say how long is it going to be stable or
yeah.
potent to the
Mm,
fullest extent of that medication. Let us
okay.
say, for example, aspirin 75 milligrams.
Mm,
Aspirin is very, by nature of the product, it is very
mm,
hygroscopic, which means
mm,
that it attracts water, absorbs water from the moisture.
mm,
So the reason I'm actually taking aspirin is we can actually relate to what how a product can actually be stored
mm,
and
mm.
how we need to treat the expiry date and everything else. So
Okay.
when aspirin is considered, so if they've given an expiry date of 2 years, if that
Mm,
expiry date 2 years, within that 2 years period, the
mm,
product or the tablet is going to stay in full
mm.
potent tablet, 75 milligrams. In
Okay.
other words, because it's been manufactured as 75 milligram tablets, the
Mm,
strength of the medication, if a patient's taking that medication, they will
mm.
receive 75 milligrams.
Okay.
But after the expiry date,
Mm,
it is not guaranteed that
mm.
this tablet will deliver 75 milligrams. The
Right.
potency reduces.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so that's why legally, that's why from 1979, every product is actually got to have an expiry date.
Okay.
Because if it has been used after the expiry date, the potency or the strength of the medication would not be
Okay.
exactly the same. Not only
Oh,
strength, but we'll go into the further topic as well when we discuss about other things of the stability of the product, the expiry of the product, and how people should actually consider that.
absolutely. Yeah. So, how do these pharmacological companies come to the or determine the expiration date? Is there is any science behind it? I'm sure there should be some science behind it.
Yes, every chemical product is actually got its own characteristics. So, like I was actually taking aspirin earlier on because it's hygroscopic, which absorbs water from the moisture, as in
Mm,
because of the nature of the chemical it is. So
mm,
each product, when they're actually doing the stability tests, and
mm,
when they're manufacturing every element of it, they have to
mm,
consider all of these. So most definitely preparations like the liquid format of medication, as in
mm.
liquids, are more susceptible for not to be used after the expiry date.
Sure.
Okay? And then especially like things like insulin, biological products, and liquid antibiotics, and glycerin trinitrates, and all of these products should not be used after the expiry date because
Right.
some of these medications are really vital for patients, as in very
Okay.
crucial that they get a particular dose for their condition.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's how it works, is it?
Yes.
Okay. So now, while I was reading about the expiration date, I came across an interesting concept. Like some experiment was conducted, and they mentioned it as called as shelf life extension program.
Yes.
Uh, uh, what did it reveal about the expired drugs?
Yes. So, like I was actually saying about earlier about the liquid preparations and biologic preparations, or biologic in the sense like monoclonal antibodies, where
Mm,
antibodies are grown in a different animal, and then medications are actually made from the monoclonal antibodies and so on. Those are actually considered as biologic products. So there's a great improvement in medical treatments with the biologics these days,
yeah.
and insulin I was actually saying as well, because they actually have a nature of protein within each of these products, and the temperature that they're actually being stored, it has to be precisely as per the manufacturer's instructions. So
Okay.
with insulin, obviously in the European countries, for example, if insulin is being kept in the fridge, it can stay until the expiry date on the box. But
Okay.
whereas if you bring it to the room temperature, if you
Yeah.
take it out of the fridge and then using it every day, then we
Yeah.
reduce the shelf life, as in the expiry date of the product, by 28 days.
Okay.
So it is stable for 28 days for
Yeah.
insulin.
Yeah.
So I'm coming back to your question about this study where the increase of shelf life is considered. So when it was considered, it was actually conducted in the military group as a
Okay.
military subjects.
Okay.
When a lot of medication have been taken on for camps, when they
Yeah.
take a lot of these medicines into camp, but in the end of the camp they come back with none being used, and
Yeah.
by the time they come back, all of them have actually expired.
Of course.
So they've conducted these studies to say, okay, let us see what is the potency of these medications
Yeah.
beyond the expiry date.
Mm.
So, like I was actually saying, most definitely the solid forms of medication or solid dosage forms of medications, like your tablets, capsules, or any other doses that are actually available in solid forms, which are compacted, compressed tablet forms, and so on. Their expiry date or their potency did not change much.
Which constitutes majority of the medication.
Correct. Correct. So,
Yeah.
so obviously the
So how
solid
many
dosage.
years was it potent?
Well, I would. I mean, I don't want to educate people to say it's okay to take your expiry date
I
medication,
understand that.
but
That's the reason why I picked this particular topic. Yeah, I can reveal it to the. Yeah, you can. You know better than me, so I know the gist of it. Please go ahead.
yes, yes. So it was stable. I want to say probably about 16 months or 17 months after the expiry date.
No, no. The study mentioned that it was nearly 15 years.
Yes, I think as a pharmacologist, I don't want to mention this, but
I thought so. Yeah, I can understand where you are coming from. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And equally, when we kind of consider these medications, it is not to say that this is, let us say, for example, we've got glycerin trinitrate medication,
Of course.
it,
Yeah.
which is, for those storage conditions also are very important because some of the
Mm.
medications we get in a glass bottle,
Yeah.
there is a particular reason that it actually comes in a glass bottle
Mm.
because stability of the medication is going to be
Mm.
stable if it is stored only in a glass bottle.
Okay.
And then even the glass bottle, there's actually a variation. People
Okay.
don't probably link into all of these, but if
Okay.
it's an opaque bottle, when I say
Mm.
opaque bottle, not
Mm.
a light transparent bottle, because if
Okay.
there is sunlight or if there is a direct light on some of the medication deteriorates.
Okay.
So storage conditions are very important, and then the potency can be kept within the medication if the storage conditions are adhered from the
Okay.
manufacturer's advice.
All right.
So things like storing your medications in bathrooms and toilets is not an
Mm.
ideal thing because
Okay.
that's it's a high source of water,
Mm.
and it's not a great place to store your medication. The ideal
Sure.
place to store your medication is in a cool, dry, and dark place.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so as regards to expired medicines are concerned,
Hmm.
except for a few, they are not dangerous, but the potency is less. Is
Correct.
that what is my assumption right here?
Correct. That's right. Yes. And then following on studies, what the scientific organizations are recommending the manufacturers as
Yeah.
they actually release each medication with an expiry date, they're recommending to say, okay, give us a potency date as well.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Because they're encouraging pharmaceutical companies to include this date on the medication as well, so that
Okay.
they can actually still take these medications for that long period.
Okay.
But obviously, commercial reasons, they don't want to include that.
Of course. Now, what is the stand of FDA regarding the safety of expired medicine? I'm sure FDA is going to be very protective about this. They are going to cover their backs. What is
Yes.
the stand of FDA on the expiry medicines? Do they claim it as safe or do they claim it as unsafe?
I think they have a neutral play in this. They want to say it is safe to take it is safe to take those medicines, but equally they don't recommend it.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, leaving. Okay. Right. Okay.
very how can I say it? Very diplomatic answer.
I would imagine so. Now, let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
Uh, are there any specific medications that are
Hmm.
considered unsafe
Yeah.
after the expiration date rather than claiming it as we can take it safely after the expiration date? Are there
So
any specific drugs?
yes. So most definitely, let us say I want to come back with the dosage forms again. So
Okay.
the solid dosage forms like
Yeah.
tablets and capsules are
Yeah.
most definitely safer to take
Mhm.
beyond the expiry date.
Okay.
And then coming on to your other preparations like your
Mm.
liquids. So your liquid preparation is not so safe to take it after the expiry date.
Okay.
And then antibiotics, definitely. So powdered, I mean, everywhere we actually get different type of antibiotics. Powdered
Mm.
antibiotics, which are reconstituted when you're consuming antibiotics. The made up liquid is usually for 7 or 10 days.
Right. Okay. Okay. So antibiotics in the solid form, they are okay, but the reconstituted one in the liquid form, like the
Yes,
suspension, stuff like
yes,
that. Okay.
yes,
They are
correct.
okay. Okay.
They're not safe. And then insulin as well.
Yeah.
Insulin in in the Far East countries like India and so on, all the insulin every time because of the temperature and so on. We have to store the insulin in the fridge always. But
Okay.
in European countries, it's a different kettle of fish because again, you store the insulin in the fridge and you're extending the expiry of that insulin until the manufactured advice. But if
Sure.
you're taking it to the room temperature, you're reducing the shelf life to
Sure.
28 days. And
Absolutely.
then and then EpiPen as well. I want to touch on that.
Mm.
EpiPen, which is the epinephrine injection.
Yeah. Life saving.
So, yes, life saving. It is to say that we have to adhere to the expiry date on that. The
Okay.
reason is we can't take a risk on that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It might be
Yeah.
potent, but at the end, at equally, making sure what is actually required and what isn't, you need to consider that it always has a good expiry date on it.
Right. Okay. Now, if I have got
Mm-hmm.
a medicine at home, which
Mm-hmm.
has gone past the expiry date,
Yeah.
are there any signs that the medication is expired or not that I should discard it? Is there
Yes.
anywhere that I will be able to find it out
Yes.
by seeing the medicine that I
Yes.
should not be taking this past the expiry date?
Yes. It's a very good thing that you actually mentioned, Raj, because by looking at the nature of the medication itself, we can actually see whether if it's in a good state or not. Let us say, for example, a suspension, a liquid medication. If it is discolored in a
Yeah,
sense, if
yeah,
it is sedimented,
yeah.
if it is um, if the smell of the medication is not the same as when you actually bought it,
Okay,
so that is kind of denatured.
yeah.
And things like your solid medication like your tablets or your capsules,
Hmm.
if they become into a powder form, then definitely that
Oh,
is not in a good state.
okay,
Even
okay.
looking at the medication, you can decide, okay, this is definitely gone off. You can't take them. Yeah.
Hmm.
So when it disintegrates into powder form, or when it's discolored, or when it is actually, when you smell the medication, it's not the same as when you actually bought it from. So the recommendation for liquid medication, as in
Yeah,
the liquids in the sense like a cough syrup or like any of the bought over the counter medications, if you've opened the bottle for more than 30 days, it is recommended not to use that.
right. Okay, right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense actually.
Yes.
So, in nutshell, if we have to give a consolidated piece of advice to the general public
Yeah.
regarding the expiry date,
Hmm.
what would your say be?
I'm going to cover this so that it is going to be useful for every person listening to this. So, in India, we go to a chemist and get medication. They give us, let us say, a doctor has actually given us a 1 week treatment of a medication and advises only to use it when you actually need to use it again, or when you need to use it if the problem persists and things like that.
Sure.
So the pharmacist or the person who's actually behind the counter in one of the pharmacies in India, they're going to chop and chip
Mm.
the strip of medication and give it to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is not going to have what the manufacturer's date is and what
Mm.
is the expiry date on there.
Mm.
So, what I would recommend people do is actually write the expiry on the medication itself, either
Mm.
with a marker pen or any pen that can write on the strip, so
Okay.
that you know exactly precisely when the expiry date is on that.
Mm.
And the other advice I want to give for people is, if it is a condition that a prescribed medication has been prescribed,
Mm.
don't assume that it is the same condition and start
Mm.
taking the medication again. Get
Mm.
some medicine consultation to before
Okay.
start using the same medication.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic, Raghu. That is very informative, actually. Now, uh, for the viewers who have been viewing our program, if you like this program, kindly do subscribe to our channel. And what I would do is I would thank Raghu for giving us all this informative piece of literature regarding the expiry date. And I'm sure this is going to be of great help to you. Raghu, I really appreciate your presence here. And I look forward you coming over here on many more topics, which is going to be of great help to the public.
Thank you. One last thing I want to say. If people in the UK, the expiry date isn't mentioned in different ways on each medication. It says EXP, which means expiry, or they say expiry date,
Mm.
or sometimes they can actually say use before. So EXP 06 2024, for example.
Mm.
So what that 06/24 means, it's until the end of June 2024.
Mm.
That's a very confusing matter within the UK and Europe. So
Mm.
they only mention the month and the year of the
Mm.
expiry date. But
Mm.
whereas in India, you only have a manufacturer's date, and
Okay.
then the expiry date is always mentioned used before 12 months from the manufacture date, or
Okay.
used
Very
before
clever.
15 months before the
Okay.
manufacture date, or
Mm.
after the manufacture date. So
Mm.
you have to calculate and then figure out if that manufacture date. So it's ideal to check the manufacture date and the
Mm.
expiry date as well.
Mm. Okay.
I
All
hope
right.
this has been helpful. Thank you for welcoming here, Raj.
Thanks a lot. We look forward to seeing you in many more episodes to come. Thanks,
Thank you so
Raghu.
much.